real facts of the tremendous group allurement and abduction. A tremendous criminal incident was reported that on April the 7th last, more than 10 employees of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea who had been running a restaurant in Ningbo of Zhejiang province of China were kidnapped and taken to South Korea en masse. Now, Park Geun-hye and a group of South Korea are deceiving the public as if the incident is a so-called group desertion from the North according to alleged voluntary will of the employees. But it is nothing but a sophistry to cover up their criminal group allurement and abduction. The recent incident, unprecedented in the history of North-South relations, was a special operation against the North, which was long planned and promoted in top secrecy by agents of the South Korean National Intelligence Service targeting the DPRK restaurants abroad. The special operation was conducted largely at 3 stages. The first stage was to bribe an ideologically unsound and greedy man. For the purpose, the South Korean National Intelligence Service dispatched 2 agents to northeast China after giving them a task to carry out the operation for group desertion from the north. They disguised themselves as Director Kim and Director Park and began to look for an object. In the course, they learned that He Gang-il, who had come to Yanji City as a manager of a restaurant in August 2013, was a setter who knew nothing but money and a shameless and ferocious guy without even elementary human reason and morality. They immediately approached him and began to bribe him. They took him to nightclubs, restaurants, and bathrooms and instigated him to be more interested in money and things, and at the same time persistently induced him to harbor an illusion about South Korea. At that time, his restaurant was not managed properly, and he had already borrowed a colossal sum of money from his partner. Informed of it, the agents appeased him, saying that if he goes to the south, they would enable him to pay back 1,500,000 yuan of debt and live in splendor. Those without faith are bound to be reduced to traitors. Appeased and deceived by the agents, He Gang-il decided to run away to South Korea and promoted preparations in secret. Reading his mentality and movement, the agents of the South Korean National Intelligence Service went over to the second stage of the operation. The second stage was to further stimulate his greed and vanity to create a condition for group desertion from the north. The agents tempted him, saying, "Once you decided to desert from the north, you'd better perform great feats. So to speak, if you take several employees of your restaurant to Seoul, you may make great gains. If you are going to succeed in the group desertion, you should move your restaurant to an area inhabited by few North Korean citizens." In this way, they demanded him move his restaurant. As demanded by the agents, He Gang-il moved the restaurant to Ningbo city of Zhejiang province in southeast China in October 2015, allegedly for better operation of restaurant. Afterwards, he, according to the directions of the agents, felt sentiments of his employees and acted cunningly to win their favor. He left no stone unturned to take his employees to South Korea. The last stage of the operation was to take the employees to South Korea through a third country by lie, deception, threat, and blackmail. This year, the South Korean National Intelligence Service had contacts with him through cell phone in Seoul. The service made him accelerate the preparations for group desertion, frequently learning the tendencies of his employees through him and giving him relevant directions. When the preparations entered the last lap, the National Intelligence Service gave him an instruction to go over to the final action in early April. According to the instruction, He Gang-il assembled all the employees of the restaurant on April the 4th and said, "Let us go to a third country for management activities. Of course, we are not going to South Korea. Let us go to Southeast Asia, for instance, Malaysia or the Philippines." Some employees protested against his proposal, and he beat and detained them. The next day, he demanded his employees pack their things, telling a lie that their lodgings would be moved as they had to go to a far-off place for mobile services. saying they should confirm the site concerning the establishment of a new restaurant and make preparations for mobile services. He took 12 employees of his restaurant to the Pudong airport in Shanghai. At the airport, the agents of the South Korean National Intelligence Service, who had brought forged passports for 13 persons from Seoul, were on standby with the air tickets ready. On the early morning of April 6th, He Gang-il, together with the agents, took 12 employees on an airliner to a Southeast Asian country, from which he took them to South Korea guided by another agent. In the airliner, he said they had been given a so-called special task to conduct activities in South Korea, deceiving and intimidating his employees. Upon arriving in South Korea, the girl employees realized that they had been deceived by the agents and He Gang-il. It is the facts of the tremendous group allurement and abduction by the gangsters of the South Korean National Intelligence Service. As the facts share, the recent incident is a vicious immoral crime planned and committed by the South Korean National Intelligence Service from A to Z. This notwithstanding, however, Park Geun-hye and a group are circulating such sophistries as respect of the will of our employees and humanitarian step, deceiving world public as if the recent incident is a reflection of skepsis toward the DPRK society and what they call yearning for the South Korean society. They are really shameless and brazen-faced. Now our citizens taken to South Korea bitterly denounce the immoral atrocities of the South Korean authorities, who allured and kidnapped them en masse with falsehood and deception, and demand immediate return to their motherland. However, the South Korean puppets, afraid of the disclosure of the facts to the public, detain the abductees under the pretext of so-called protection of their safety, and keep them from outside, and are forcing even submission on them. It clearly shows once again that the Park Geun-hye group is a group of the most vicious and despicable human rights violators. It is a silly act for the Park Geun-hye group to make desperate efforts to cover up the truth of the incident. Organs concerned of the DPRK have more specific materials and evidences on the incident. Park Geun-hye and a group must make an apology to the whole nation and the world for their tremendous group allurement and abduction, send back our citizens unconditionally, and strictly punish those involved in the incident and the wire pullers. In case they do not accept our demand but justify their criminal acts with senseless sophistries, we, as already declared, will consider that the recent incident has been done according to the direct order of the Blue House, and that they will persist in allurement and abduction of our citizens in the future too, and take thousandfold retaliatory measures against the Blue House.